Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's tutorial is to show you how to do the perfect twisted boutique bow. I have already done a tutorial on this type of bow, but it is an old tutorial and some of my old tutorials, they just need a little bit of an update. So yeah, this is a nice refreshed tutorial on how to make this ever popular hair bow, and I've also added these spiky tails to the bottom. So I've got everything here that I need to make my bow. I've got a lighter to heat seal the ends of the ribbon. I've got some fabric glue. Now this is actually fray stop, but I do recommend instead an all-purpose adhesive. But as you can see, both of mine are completely out and I haven't bought any more. I completely forgot. So I'm using this as an alternative. But yeah, you just want a clear drying all-purpose glue. You will also need a hot glue gun, some scissors to cut your ribbon. I use Fiskars fabric scissors. I've got a hair clip here and I've already half lined it. I say half lined it, I've left this little bit, and that is just to cover the middle part when we get to it. You will need a needle, and I've threaded this with some extra strong thread and I've popped a knot in the end. And then you will need 3 pieces of ribbon for your tails and 1 piece for the main part of the bow, and this piece is to wrap the centre. So the longer piece of ribbon for the main part of the bow is 1.5 inch wide or 4 centimeters wide ribbon. And this is cut to 60 centimeters in length or 23 3/4 inches. And that is for the main part of the bow. And then we've got 3 pieces here for the tails. I've already cut 2 into the spikes. I will show you how to do that on the final piece. Again, this is 1.5 inch wide or 4 centimeters wide. And for the tails, you will need 3 pieces cut to 12 centimeters or around 4 3/4 inches in length. And that is 3 pieces for the tails or the spikes. And then this piece to wrap around the center, again 1.5 inch wide or 4 centimeters wide, and this is cut to 7 centimeters in length or just under 3 inches. And I'm going to set this piece aside because we won't need that until last. Everything that I use in this tutorial I will link in the description below, so if you press on the title that will bring up the description and you can find all of these products. So beginning with the spikes first, I'm grabbing my needle and thread. I'm going to set this longer piece aside. So as I said, I've already cut 2 pieces into the spikes. This ribbon's a little bit curly so it won't lay flat. So I've got this piece here which is already cut to 12 centimeters. Grabbing my scissors and my lighter, I'm going to cut in these spikes. So to do that, I fold the ribbon in half lengthways, and then I cut from this open corner down diagonally, and I like to slightly curve it, and that just gives it a soft sort of look to the spikes rather than a harsh sort of spike. But that's up to you. If you want to just cut it diagonally like that, you can, but I do mine from the open edge, and then I just curve the scissors around and down diagonally to give it that nice soft curved look. And then while it's still pinched in half, but letting it go so it's not touching, because if I use my lighter to heat seal this, it will bond the 2 bits together. So making sure they're not touching, grabbing your lighter, run it along those both edges at the same time, and that will heat seal the ends of the spikes at the same time. And then when you open it up, you've got that nice soft sort of look to those tails. I'm going to do the same on the other end, and you will need to do that on all 3 of your pieces. And then I'm going to line these all up together, and then I'm going to fold them in half to mark the center. So I'm folding them in half as best as I can, as neatly as I can, and then I'm going to use a bit of heat from my lighter to mark a crease in there, just so I can use that as a guide for the center. Just move my scissors to one side. So when I open these up, I can now see where the middle is. And this is where you will need your clear all-purpose adhesive. In my case, I'm just using this fray stop. And I'm just going to apply a little bit in the middle of one of my pieces. So where I've marked the crease in, I'm going to cross these over in an X shape, like that. Now the fray stop is not holding as well as the all-purpose adhesive, so I'm going to have to use some clips to hold it in place. And then taking the third piece, you want to lay that across the middle. So I'll try the fray stop again, but yeah, I don't think that's going to be working so well, unfortunately. And then you need to lay this piece over the top so that the crease you've made in the middle goes directly across the middle where these overlaps. You know it's central. See, the all-purpose adhesive, that would hold this down immediately, but I don't think this is quite holding. No, it's popping up because the ribbon's already curly. So yeah, you do need your all-purpose adhesive, unfortunately. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick this up and then remove these clips. I'm just keeping it together with my thumb and fingers, and then we'll quickly get that sewn together. So taking my needle and thread now, I'm going to do 6 stitches across the middle using that crease as a guide. So going in through the top where these first 2 pieces overlap, and pull it all the way through to the knot, and then coming up through the bottom toward the top for my second stitch. And then my third stitch, which is slightly to the right of the center of this middle piece. And then my fourth stitch coming up through the opposite side. So this one is slightly to the left of the center of that piece. And then my fifth stitch through the edge of that middle piece. And then the final stitch coming up through where these 2 pieces cross over. So this is what it looks like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we're going to pull on this thread now to form that pinch in the middle. And then just wrap that around a couple of times to hold that all in place. And then on the underside, I'm just going to catch the edge bit of ribbon, just the very edge on the underside. And then on the second go in the same spot, before I pull it completely tight this time, I'm going to go through the loose loop a couple of times, and that will form a knot to hold that in place, so I can trim off the excess thread. And then when you flip this over, you've got your spike base bow ready to attach underneath your boutique bow. So I'm going to set these aside now, and then we're going to work on our main part of the bow, the boutique bow. Now this is a very popular hair bow, and as I said, it never really goes out of fashion, and lots of people struggle with these. So I'm going to show you today how to get that perfect twisted boutique bow. So first of all, as always, we need to heat seal the ends of the ribbon, and this prevents any fraying, and it also gets rid of any existing frays. And now we need to fold this in half to find the centre. So taking the 2 raw ends together so that we can find the very centre of the ribbon. I'm going to use some heat from my lighter to mark that crease in there. Like that. And then on the ends, on both ends, my ribbon is so curly, I should have used my straighteners on it to straighten it out a little bit. We're going to fold this in half lengthways at the end, and again using a bit of heat from my lighter, mark a crease in there like that, and the same on the other end. So folding it in half lengthways, marking the crease there. So this is what we've got now. We've got that crease in the middle and those two creases on either end. Now, as my glue is not working, I'm going to have to use a couple of pins for this part. So laying our ribbon out flat now, obviously I can't get it all in the screen because it's quite long. So I'm going to shift this over so you can see the right side, which we'll work on first. So we're going to keep this part of the ribbon facing up towards us. We're not going to fold it over. We're going to keep this side facing up towards you. You want to take this end and curl it around and overlap the middle. So you've got like this loop. And then we're going to line it up. So this crease we made in the middle of this piece here and the central crease, they are both in line with each other. And we've got this piece, this corner, lined up along the bottom. And instead of having it straight down, as most people make their boutique bows, we're going to twist it so that there is a centimetre gap from this corner to the bottom. So there's 1 centimetre gap here. And this corner is in line with the bottom, and this crease is in line with the centre. So I hope you've got all that. There's a lot of information to take in. Now this is where normally I would use the glue, the all-purpose adhesive underneath, but mine's ran out. So I'm using some pins. So again, I'm just doing this by eye. You can measure the centimetre if it makes you feel better, but I'm doing it by eye. And I'm going to pin that in place. So that pin is now holding that in place like that. And I'm going to show you now why I do this angle. So we're going to do the left side now in the same way, but instead of bringing it round the top, we're going to bring this piece around the bottom. So again, keeping this piece of the ribbon facing up towards you. We're not folding it over, we're keeping this piece facing up, and we're going to bring it round the bottom this time and overlap the centre. So if we overlap this now directly in line, we know it's all going to be correct. 1 centimetre now from this top part. This corner is in line with this edge. But I just want to show you why I do this angle. So if I bring this piece in, as you can see, these are more closer together, which makes a little bit more of a twist in that shape. Whereas if I line this up straight, as you normally would a boutique bow, so line this raw edge up along the straight edge of this piece of ribbon coming across. When you bring this piece in, this piece is wider, so you've got less of that twist in the ribbon shape. So when you finish the completed bow, you've got less of that twisted look. So that is why I like to have this 1 centimetre gap and this angle. So again, with this piece now round, so we've got this loop and this figure of 8 shape, I'm going to line these up so that this top corner now is in line with this top piece of ribbon which goes through, and this corner should now be 1 centimetre from this edge. But if you line it up with this piece here, that should work out correctly anyway. So I'm lining it up, grabbing my second pin. This is where the glue is a lot easier, you see. If you've got the all-purpose adhesive, it is much easier to glue these in place without losing the shape. So we've now got those two pieces lined up and this figure of 8 shape. Next we're going to fold it in half this way. So again, this is where the needles or the pins can come in awkward, because when you fold it in half the pins may be in the way, which is why I've stuck both the pins low so that I can still fold it in half. So I'm folding it in half that way. That pin's a little bit making it ruck up, but that should be fine. And we're going to mark the centre now of these 2 loops. So grabbing that edge and my lighter, again I'm going to mark a crease in there. I like to mark this in quite well. Same with the other side, so making sure it's folded in half correctly. Mark the centre of that loop. And then I also like to mark the centre of this bottom piece, or the middle piece. Again, I have got a little bit of a ruck in there, unfortunately, where that pin is, but as long as I get the crease marked in the edges, that's the most important part we need to see. So I'm grabbing a couple of fabric clips now, because I will need these, because again we don't have the all-purpose adhesive glue. So this is what we've got now, with our creases marked here and in the centre, and now we're going to bring these sides in to form the 4 loops. So bringing this right hand side in to begin with, we're going to bring it into the centre, lining up this crease with this centre crease that we made, and you want to line this edge up with where these 2 just cross over. So where them 2 just meet, you want to line that edge up, and then I'm going to grab my fabric clips and hold that in place, making sure that that crease is still in line. And now we're going to do the same with this left loop, so we're going to bring this into the centre, again lining this outer edge up with this edge where it just crosses over, and making sure that this crease is in line all the way across. And then again, taking my fabric clip, I'm going to pop it on there to hold that side all in place. So this is what we've got now. This is actually the underside of the bow, and when you flip it over, where these 2 pieces cross over, that is the top of your bow. So grabbing a needle, and I've got my thread on there with a knot in the end, and I've also got a pen here because I'm going to show you visually where I stitch. So I do 6 stitches. I go in through this first corner, through the top where they overlap, then our second stitch a little bit away from that, and then the 3rd stitch where the center is, slightly to the right of the center, so about here. Again, I'm stitching all the way across the crease that we've got here in the middle, and then our other 3 stitches are now going to be mirroring these. So our 4th stitch is going to go in here, which is slightly to the left of the center, and then our 5th stitch in the middle of that one and the end, and then the final one where these 2 overlap, like that. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is where we're going to stitch. I might have to pull these pins out as we start stitching, just so I've got room to sew. So going in through the top for our first stitch where they cross over, and catching the bottom edge of this ribbon, again making sure you're in the line of the crease so you know you're getting it straight across the middle. And then we're going to go back in through the bottom, coming up the top for our 2nd stitch, our 3rd one in through the top toward the bottom, And then our 4th stitch coming up from the bottom toward the top. And then our 5th stitch through the top toward the bottom. And then our final stitch, I'm going to have to remove that clip because it's in the way. Making sure you catch that bottom corner, coming all the way through. And then I'm going to remove these 2 pins now out of the way. So this is what the stitches look like across the top, and this is the underside. And then we're going to pull on this thread now to form that pinch. And then wrap the centre a couple of times with the thread to hold it all in place. And then we're going to go through this edge, catching a little bit of the ribbon, just a little small amount, once. And then on the second go in, we're going to not pull it completely tight. We're going to go through this loose loop a couple of times to form a knot. That knot didn't come out quite right, but hopefully that'll hold in place enough. And we're going to trim off the excess thread and set that needle aside. And then when you flip that over, you will see that lovely twisted boutique bow already taken shape. And now we are ready to attach it to our tails that we made earlier. So taking my hot glue gun, I'm going to pop some hot glue in the middle of the tails. This hot glue gun, by the way, is a new one and I do not recommend it at all. I had to turn it off in between uses because it was just absolutely dripping with hot glue. My Dremel one I had before, I had that for about 4 years with absolute no trouble, and yeah, it did obviously eventually give in. Oh, I'd spilt nail varnish all over it. It was such a mess. So yeah, I thought I'd try a new one. I like the look of the nice long thin nozzle, but I've literally, you can't see over here, I've got a pile of just melted hot glue where it's just constantly dripping. So yeah, now it's not quite heated up for when I do want to use it because I had to switch it off. Anyway, I'll stop going on about that. Back to my tutorial. So I've layered my boutique bow on top of my tails, and now I've got this half lined hair clip. I'm going to add this to the bottom if I can get some hot glue out. It's been on about 3 minutes, but it's still not quite warmed up. I'm going to stick this across the bottom middle of my bow. And then taking that 7cm piece that I cut off earlier, I'm going to make that lovely sort of ruched centre for the bow. So yeah, we've got our 7cm piece to make the middle of the bow. So taking my lighter, I'm going to hold these 2 outer corners and I'm going to fold it into like a tri-fold or a Z fold. So as you can see, I've got like this Z shape, and then I'm going to layer them up together. And then using the heat from my lighter, at the same time as heat sealing that edge, I'm melting the fibres to act as a glue to hold that together in that fold. Being careful not to burn my fingers because it does get hot. So it holds together like this. And then I'm going to flip it around and do the same on the opposite side. So taking the 2 corners, making that Z fold, and layering them up, and then melting the ends to bond them together. And then when you pull those 2 ends, you get that lovely twisted centre. So I'm going to apply this now to the top of my bow with my leaky hot glue gun. I'm going to put a little bit of glue just on the top there, pull in that ruche and layer it over the bow, making sure it's central, and then bringing those side pieces round toward the bottom. Move those spiky tails out of the way, so I don't want to glue them. And then I'll use that drip there, as you can see, to glue one side down under the clip. And then turning it around, and I'm going to glue the other side. Under the clip. Just making sure that tail don't get stuck on there. And then using this piece, which I haven't fully wrapped around the clip, I'm going to use that to cover that centre piece. So again, popping some glue on that last tail end, and then bringing that over that centre piece to cover that all up. I need a little bit more hot glue just on that end. And then when you flip this over, you can just adjust your tails and your bow. That don't actually need too much adjusting because it's already a beautiful shape, as you can see. And there you go. That is how to make the perfect twisted boutique bow, every time guaranteed. Isn't that gorgeous? And it didn't take too much fluff in at the end. And there's the one I made in pink. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial today. If you did, please hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And if you press the bell button, that will turn on notifications. And I'll be back again soon. Bye.